Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, welcome to the Legal Upside Down. Do you remember this bit of theater, this forceful testimony from Donald Trump's former criminal defense attorney, Pam Bondi, at her Senate confirmation hearing? She said, "The Justice Department will never have an enemies list." Well, on day one, after being confirmed as Attorney General, Pam Bondi announced the Department of Justice will be going after Trump's enemies. Here's the new reporting, this from NPR. New Attorney General moves to align Justice Department with Trump's priorities. And there she is, obviously showing her independence from the White House and the president. On her first day on the job, Bondi signed 14 memos addressed to all Justice Department employees. Some of the directives roll back guidelines put in place under the Biden administration, while others strike new ground. Many appear to offer details to implement executive orders President Trump signed, including on the weaponization of the federal government and on combating anti-Semitism. One of the memos, for example, establishes the Weaponization Working Group, which is tasked with reviewing the activities of all department and agencies exercising civil or criminal enforcement authority of the United States over the last 4 years. Trump and Bondi have both argued that the department, under the Biden administration, unfairly targeted conservatives, most notably Trump himself. Trump was charged in 2 federal cases for election interference in 2020 and for hoarding classified documents. Both cases were dropped after he won election to a second term. It, the memo, mentions several specific things that it will examine, including weaponization by former special counsel Jack Smith, the prosecutors and the investigators who took part in the unprecedented raid on President Trump's home. FBI agents searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago club and his residence as part of its classified documents case. So friends, from Donald Trump's incessant whining and complaining, we know that he views as his enemies Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, the FBI investigators and federal prosecutors who worked January 6th cases. And so, as Attorney General, who did Pam Bondi vow to go after? Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, Letitia James, the FBI investigators and federal prosecutors who handled January 6th cases. Maybe it's just a coincidence. You know, friends, I know Pam Bondi has never worked at the United States Department of Justice, so maybe she doesn't know that we don't talk about investigations. We don't publish lists of people we intend to investigate. We don't even decide who we should investigate unless there is what's called adequate predication, enough evidence that someone has engaged in criminal activity before we even open an investigation, never mind announce that we will be opening investigations. None of this is the way a responsible, law-abiding Department of Justice is supposed to work. And friends, let's finish with this. Let me take on just one absurdity, one obscene perversion of the mission of the Department of Justice. Remember when we just read that Pam Bondi said the Department of Justice will be going after the prosecutors and investigators who took part in the unprecedented raid on President Trump's home when FBI agents searched Trump's Mar-a-Lago club and his residence as part of its classified documents case. Let's be fact-based for just 1 minute. Let's return to reality. Donald Trump took classified documents, national defense information, some of our nation's most closely guarded secrets. He took them, some might even say stole them, he took them from the White House, from the federal government, without authority, without permission, without any lawful basis when he left the presidency, and he shipped them down to his social club in Florida. He was then unlawfully retaining them, and the federal government went about trying to negotiate the return of documents he had no right to have. You know, basically he held them hostage. This was like a hostage negotiation for the return of our nation's classified information. And Trump said, I'm not giving them back. And we negotiated and negotiated and negotiated, and nothing came of it. We would not have negotiated like that if anybody else had been unlawfully retaining our national security secrets. You can bet. But we negotiated endlessly to no avail. So then a grand jury issued a subpoena, which has the force of a court order, saying, turn the damn documents over. Give them back. You are hereby compelled by the law to return them. And Donald Trump didn't. Not only did he not return them, he had one of his attorneys, write an affidavit certifying they'd all been returned. Problem solved. But they hadn't been returned. And the federal government, the Department of Justice, the FBI, had ample evidence that they hadn't been returned. They were hidden. They were moved around in what turned out to be a conspiracy that Trump was in with some of his workers at Mar-a-Lago. So what happened? All of this evidence was presented to a federal judge in a sworn affidavit, and the federal judge said, oh, you bet there's probable cause to believe that crimes have been committed, and evidence of those crimes is presently being held, retained, concealed at Mar-a-Lago, and the judge issued a search warrant. This is not some unlawful raid on Mar-a-Lago. It is the exact opposite. It is our nation, our law enforcement agency, our Department of Justice doing the responsible thing, trying to claw back from someone who was violating the law, our national security information. And lo and behold, contrary to Trump's lawyer certifying they'd all been turned over, there were tons of classified documents being unlawfully retained at Mar-a-Lago, and that is why Donald Trump was criminally indicted by a grand jury for unlawfully retaining those documents, for obstructing justice by intentionally and knowingly violating that grand jury subpoena, and for violating our nation's espionage laws because of the sensitivity, the volatility, indeed the danger to our national security represented by the information Trump was unlawfully retaining. And somehow law enforcement, the FBI, the Department of Justice, they're all the bad guys because they sought to enforce the law. And they did it while remaining loyal to the Constitution. And Pam Bondi said, for that they will pay. They went after dear leader Donald Trump, and we will try to make them pay. I guess they believe that political leaders can commit all of the damn crimes they want. And if you try to hold them accountable, you are wrong. FBI, federal prosecutors, Department of Justice, you are wrong for trying to hold powerful people accountable for their crimes. This is the legal upside down. This is George Orwell's 1984. This is not a fact-based Department of Justice that we will now have to suffer for a while. But we won't give up. We won't give in. Because justice matters. Midterms, friends. Midterms. As always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.